Wrapped in the aesthetics of a PlayStation 1 era survival horror game, the Tartarus Key is a slow-burning mystery puzzle game with moments that will give you chills and enough twists and turns to keep you guessing as to what's really going on. Whilst a short experience overall, it's also a memorable one. I'd like to thank Player 2 PR for providing a review code, allowing me to put this video up on the day the game releases, but all opinions on the game in this video, positive and negative, are mine alone. The most obvious point to mention as we get into the game is that despite the retro graphics and Resident Evil-like mansion settings, the Tartarus Key is not a survival horror game. That's not a criticism or a point against the game, but it is worth noting going in that there's no combat and all progression through the game is puzzle based. That's not a problem for me, as in my view puzzles are an integral part of horror games as long as they're done well. But if you're the kind of person for whom puzzles are a necessary evil, or an unnecessary one I guess, then at least you're forewarned. The premise of this game is that your character, Alex Young, wakes up in a strange mansion with no memory of how she got there. As you progress, you'll find other characters in the same predicament, and it's up to you to save them from a grisly fate by solving puzzles. As you're trying to make your way from one room to the next, those puzzles start off simple enough, but they ramp up in complexity by the time someone's life is on the line. Every single puzzle in this game is incredibly inventive, and also self-contained. You'll find keys that open rooms about the house, but for the most part, when you're faced with a puzzle, all of the clues you need to resolve it are there in the room. This doesn't necessarily make them easier, as you will have to search high and low for clues and key items, and pay close attention to the details. At certain points in the game, it became necessary for me to get a notebook out in order to lay out the clues in a way that I could make sense of. Though ironically, it was the slightly less complex puzzles that I found more frustrating, having to assign values to symbols based on the values of other symbols, or work out the order the 4 numbers of a passcode could go in, and there were a couple of occasions where I solved these simply by brute forcing them. But even when a puzzle held me for 10 minutes or so before a solution presented itself, I found myself compelled to go on. Not only for the individual brain teasers, but for the much bigger mystery of the plot that we were picking away at. At the beginning of this game, when you awaken in a locked room with security cameras following you and puzzle solving necessary to escape and to save the lives of your companions, you imagine that you might be held at the whim of someone not unlike the Jigsaw Killer from Saw. That's creepy enough, but then the environment starts to shift around you, sometimes in subtle ways, other times not subtly at all, and as ice rips up your spine you start to question not just the conspiracy at work, but reality itself. As she tries to hold her nerve and make sense of all this, Alex gathers companions when she saves others in the house. This is where the puzzles take on the air of macabre dread, because when all you're doing is unlocking a door, you might be stuck for a while, or in some cases a prompt might make it clear you've got the right answer. But when there's a life on the line, you only know whether you've got it right by whether the other person comes out of it intact. If you're wrong, the game lets you fail, and you progress on with the weight of that failure pressing down on Alex. In the midst of this horror and tension, the characters and their dialogue is fun. Alex in particular definitely takes the situation seriously, but she also reacts with sardonic disbelief as things get weirder, not afraid to hang a lampshade on certain typical horror tropes. The other characters also have their own unique, memorable identities and quirks. From the cynical, hard-boiled detective to the snooty and self-interested rich man, there's humour to be found in the midst of everything. It's hard to talk more about the plot without spoilers, but I will say that each of the 3 different endings puts the whole tale in a different light. Is it just a murder house operated by a madman? Or a science experiment? Or something spookier and more Lovecraftian? Is what Alex is seeing real or in her imagination, the product of special effects or a nightmare realm? Different endings will leave you with different opinions. Though even if you get the true ending, a lot of the story is gaps filled by your own deduction. The PS1 era graphics are perfectly suited to the tale this game is telling, but sometimes less so to the puzzles. When exploring the environment, there are several rooms where you'll miss something not because you don't see it, but because the window for a text prompt to interact with it is so slim that you might not even realise it's there. At other times, trying to operate a puzzle that is set into a panel or open a specific drawer can feel clunky for the same reason. This isn't a constant problem, and certainly not a game-breaking one, but it does have the potential to do a disservice to the puzzles by making them more frustrating than they ought to be. But the game does make up for this in its presentation, from the retro graphics to the atmospheric music to the sheer spookiness of those moments where reality bends, threatening to break. It's also worth commending the developers for their efforts to make the game accessible. There isn't a huge suite of accessibility options, and I wasn't expecting that from an indie studio comprising of 2 devs. But a game whose story is primarily told through text, allowing you to change the subtitles from colour to black and white, to add a background, or to use a dyslexia-friendly font is great to see. The Tartarus Key is not a long game. Getting all 3 endings and 91% of the trophies took me around 8 hours all told. But like the lack of combat, this is not a point against the game. Shoehorning in a gun battle or trying to drag it out so that a single playthrough took over 10 hours would unravel what makes this game so fun and compelling. It's a video game escape room with a cast of eccentrics, whose look and feel harks back to the late 90s. You should definitely check it out. Let me know in the comments if this sounds like your kind of game, and if you'll be getting it now that it's out. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. Like the video that just popped up, which YouTube thinks you should watch next. This is a Patreon and member supported channel, so if you want to become a member and unlock custom badges and emojis, early access to my videos, and your name in the credits, then click the join button below. Thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.